All right, so are you ready to really get to the heart of the matter? Purity of heart,
Okay.
as explored in Allan Kardec's The Gospel According to the Spirit.
Yeah.
We're going to be focusing on Chapter 8, which really dives deep into this whole concept.
It's interesting how Kardec uses that well-known quote, "Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God,"
Oh, yeah.
to launch this exploration.
Yeah.
He really challenges us to look beyond actions and consider, like,
Right.
what's going on in our minds.
So even like a fleeting thought
Yeah.
about something quote-unquote bad
Right.
could be considered a form of impurity.
Wow.
That seems...
Kardec does say, true purity is not only displayed in one's actions, it is also displayed in one's thoughts. For those who have a pure heart do not even think about evil. However, he recognizes that everyone is at a different stage on their journey towards spiritual enlightenment.
You're talking about those 3 levels of moral progress he lays out.
Exactly. Some people might have reached a point where evil thoughts simply don't even cross their minds.
Right.
Others might struggle with those thoughts, but choose to reject them.
Mm.
And then there are those who dwell in that negativity who haven't yet learned to control their thoughts.
So it's not about condemning anyone, but recognizing that we're all at different points on this path.
Right.
And God, according to Kardec,
Yeah.
understands and judges us accordingly.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm curious about those unclean hands you mentioned earlier.
Ah, yes. The Pharisees.
Yes.
Obsessed with ritual hand washing.
Right.
It's a great example of what Kardec is getting at. They focused on the outward appearance of purity, but neglected the true essence of it.
So they missed the forest for the trees.
Exactly. And
Wow.
it's something we still grapple with today,
Oh, yeah.
especially with the rise of social media.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. It's like that influencer who preaches body positivity,
Yeah.
but promotes unhealthy diet products.
Right, right.
Or that politician who talks about family values,
Yeah,
but is caught in a scandal.
totally.
It's that gap between what's presented on the surface
Yeah.
and what's going on underneath.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Kardec would probably say those are modern-day unclean hands.
Mm.
It's a good reminder for us to check our own intentions.
Right.
And make sure we're not just putting on a show.
It's so easy to get caught up in appearances, especially in today's world.
It is.
Now, what about those scandals Kardec talks about?
He uses the word scandal to describe anything stemming from human vices and imperfections,
Okay.
which, let's face it, is a lot of things.
Well, we are human after all.
Right.
But he doesn't seem to be saying we should avoid these scandals altogether.
Not at all.
Okay.
He actually sees them as inevitable,
Okay.
given our imperfect nature.
Right.
But he also presents them as opportunities for growth.
So it's not about being perfect, but about learning from those inevitable missteps.
Precisely. It's like how today we're so quick to judge and cancel people online without understanding the context or the potential for growth. Kardec reminds us that even these scandals can be opportunities for learning and transformation.
It's about having compassion for ourselves and others,
Yes.
recognizing that we all make mistakes.
Compassion and understanding are certainly at the heart of what Kardec is talking about. And he also emphasizes the need to be proactive when it comes to our spiritual development.
This brings to mind that rather intense imagery he uses, talking about cutting off your hand if it causes you to sin.
Right.
That always gets my attention.
It's definitely a powerful image.
Yeah.
And of course, not meant to be taken literally.
No, of course not. But it does make you think about those things in our lives that we might need to cut off
Right.
in order to move towards greater spiritual integrity.
It's about identifying those things that consistently lead us astray
Right.
and having the courage to create distance. Even if it's difficult.
Yeah.
It might be a toxic relationship, a harmful habit,
Right.
or even certain online spaces that just drain our energy and feed our negativity.
So sometimes tough love is the most loving thing we can do for ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that central idea of purifying our hearts, of cultivating that inner alignment where our thoughts, intentions, and actions are in harmony.
Speaking of inner alignment, Kardec also talks about the importance of being open to guidance and learning, comparing it to a child's approach.
He references that beautiful quote,
Okay.
"Let the children come to me."
Right.
But he's not just talking about literal children.
Okay.
He's talking about anyone who approaches life with a sense of wonder, humility, and a willingness to learn.
So it's about reclaiming that childlike openness and curiosity,
Yeah.
even as we mature and grow.
I love that.
It's beautiful. And I think this connects perfectly to what the spirit of John the Evangelist shared through Kardec about the role of spiritism.
Yes. It's interesting how John highlights the importance of moving beyond dogma and embracing a more expansive understanding of spirituality.
He says, "Dearly beloved, the time has come in which errors, once explained, will become truths." It's a powerful call to shed limiting beliefs and embrace a path of continuous learning and growth.
Absolutely.
And speaking of growth, there's this fascinating story that Kardec shares about a blind woman.
Ah, yes. The communication from the spirit of Vianney,
Okay.
the priest of ours.
Yeah,
This one really gets you thinking.
it really does.
Yeah.
Because instead of viewing blindness as a tragedy, the spirit suggests it can actually be a blessing in disguise.
The spirit says, oh, yes, blessed are the blind who want to live with God. They are happier than you who are here, for they feel happiness, they touch it, they see souls and can soar with them in spirit realms that the predestined of your earth do not see.
Wow.
It's a radical shift in perspective, isn't it?
It definitely challenges our assumptions about what constitutes a blessing. It's like saying that sometimes not seeing with our physical eyes allows us to see more clearly with our hearts.
Beautifully put. It highlights the idea that true sight, true understanding comes from within.
Right.
And it also raises an interesting question about the role of karma.
Okay.
Kardec believed our experiences, both the joys and the struggles, are often connected to our past actions.
So are you saying this woman's blindness might be a result of her actions in a past life? It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It's certainly a thought-provoking concept.
Yeah.
Maybe she misused her sight in some way, or perhaps didn't use her vision to perceive the world with compassion.
It almost seems like those limitations, like blindness, can be seen as opportunities for growth and healing from a karmic perspective.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that idea that sometimes our greatest challenges can become our greatest strengths. But let's shift gears a bit and go back to those 3 levels of moral progress.
Good idea. I'm still trying to wrap my head around them.
Yeah.
What does that journey towards greater purity actually look like in practice?
It's not about reaching some unattainable level of perfection overnight.
Right.
It's about gradually becoming more aware of our thoughts, intentions, and actions. It's like mindfulness, but for the soul.
Mindfulness for the soul. I like that. So instead of beating ourselves up for having a bad thought, we simply acknowledge it and try to shift our focus to something more positive.
Exactly. It's about gently guiding ourselves back to a place of peace and loving kindness. We all have those moments where negativity creeps in.
Right.
It's about recognizing those thought patterns and choosing a different path.
So progress, not perfection.
Right.
It sounds like this whole journey of cultivating purity of heart is a lifelong process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Right.
There's always room for growth and refinement. It's about constantly striving to align our inner world with our highest ideals.
Okay, ready for one last mind-blowing idea from chapter 8?
I'm all ears.
It's about that passage where Jesus says, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Now, obviously, he doesn't mean we should start lopping off body parts.
No, of course not.
Right.
But it's a powerful metaphor, isn't it?
It is.
It highlights the need for decisive action when it comes to our spiritual development.
So what does that look like in a practical sense?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
What are those habits, those patterns, those influences in your life that consistently pull you away from your highest self?
Right.
What causes you to stumble, to stray from that path of spiritual integrity?
It might be certain friendships, certain online spaces, maybe even certain foods or activities that leave us feeling drained and out of alignment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most loving act we can do for ourselves is to create distance from those things,
Right.
even if it's painful.
It's like hitting the unfollow button on that social media account that's making you feel insecure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about taking radical responsibility for our own spiritual well-being.
You got it.
Yeah.
And it requires a certain level of honesty and self-awareness.
Right.
We have to be willing to look at those things that might be hindering our growth,
Yeah,
even if it's uncomfortable.
absolutely.
So are you saying we should avoid making mistakes altogether?
Not necessarily. Remember what we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Kardec actually sees those scandals,
Right.
those moments where we fall short, as opportunities for learning.
Right.
It's not about being perfect,
Okay.
but about using those experiences as fuel for transformation.
It's about having the courage to confront our weaknesses and strive to do better next time.
Yes.
And having the compassion to extend that same grace to others when they stumble.
Compassion is key.
Yeah.
It's at the heart of Kardec's message, really.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us back to that core idea of purifying our hearts. It's about cultivating those qualities of love, kindness, understanding, and forgiveness, both for ourselves and others.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of inner purity over outward appearances.
Right.
The role of scandals in our growth. The need to sometimes make tough choices to eliminate negative influences.
Yes.
And the idea that our struggles can be karmic opportunities for healing.
Absolutely.
It's a lot to process.
It is, and it's all interconnected. But remember, this is a lifelong journey.
Right.
It's not about reaching some finish line.
Right.
It's about continually striving to align our lives with those higher spiritual principles.
So what does this all mean for our listeners here and now? How can we take all these ideas from Kardec and apply them to our own lives?
Well, I think the first step is cultivating that inner awareness we've been talking about.
Okay.
Pay attention to your thoughts, your intentions, your motivations.
Right.
Ask yourself, are they aligned with my values, with my highest ideals?
It's like checking in with yourself and asking, am I living in a way that feels authentic and true to my soul?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not about achieving some unattainable standard of perfection.
Right.
It's about making progress step by step.
So be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Absolutely.
Right.
Spiritual growth is a process that unfolds over time. And just like with any skill, there will be times when you feel like you're making great strides,
Right.
and other times when you feel stuck.
Yeah.
The key is to keep practicing, keep learning, keep striving.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Don't be afraid to seek guidance and support, whether it's from a trusted friend,
Yeah.
spiritual mentor, or even from that quiet voice of wisdom within.
We're all on this journey together, even if our paths look a little different.
Right. And remember, those scandals,
Yeah.
those moments where you make mistakes or fall short,
Right.
can be powerful catalysts for growth.
It's not about being perfect, but about learning from those experiences and using them to fuel our journey towards greater spiritual integrity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as you continue to explore this idea of purifying your heart, remember that true sight comes from within.
Right.
It's about learning to see the world and everyone in it with compassion and understanding,
Yeah,
even when it's challenging.
absolutely.
So this whole deep dive has been about much more than just outward actions.
Oh, right.
It's about cultivating that inner alignment, that state of being where our thoughts, intentions, and actions are all moving in the same direction.
And it's about recognizing that we all have the potential for this inner transformation, regardless of where we are on our spiritual journey.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm curious, what stood out to you most from this exploration of purity of heart?
Oh, wow.
And what does it look like in your own life?
What resonated most with me was the idea that true purity isn't about striving for some unattainable state of perfection. It's about being mindful of our thoughts, making conscious choices that align with our values, and having the courage to learn and grow from our mistakes.
Yeah.
In my own life, it's about showing up every day with an open heart, even when faced with challenges.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's a reminder that this journey of purifying our hearts is an ongoing process, a constant unfolding. And it's something we can all choose to embrace, regardless of our beliefs or background.
It's about recognizing that inherent goodness within each of us and choosing to nurture it.
So we've explored how purity is about more than just actions.
Right.
It's a state of mind, a journey of growth, and can even be found in unexpected places like blindness. But what about you? What resonated most with you from this deep dive? And what does purity of heart look like in your life?
It's such a personal question, isn't it?
It is, but it's one worth reflecting on.
We've given you a lot to consider today, but ultimately it's up to each of you to define what purity of heart means in your own unique context.
And to find those practical ways to cultivate that inner purity in your daily lives.
Who knows what other fascinating dives await us in the gospel according to the Spirit?
Keep those sources coming. We'll be here to unpack them with you.